Travis Wingate. So, sure enough, the first Brad Wilcox bombshell that hit the Utah press was a breakout video for me, and the sequel wasn't as big a breakout. It's still a breakout in comparison with what YouTube has allowed for me, but then the other two are back to normal. There's new stuff in each one of these guys. And so now KUTV2 is again, I mean, this must be sweeps week for all Utah press. Now they've interviewed members of the Brigham Young University Black Student Union, separate but equal. As the debate is raging now among Mormons and ex-Mormons as to whether or not Brad Wilcox should be fired. They're not talking about having him excommunicated per se, at least it's not being covered by the press yet, but at least fired from his professional position at BYU. And that's usually what happens in other universities when a professor demonstrates hate. They're fired in order to save the name of the school. BYU is a different type of school. It is owned, run, and operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so, like the Catholic Pope covers up the crimes of the pastors of local parishes, if you're familiar with that news story. Likewise, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints protects its own. It's had the scandal when Mormon victims of Mormon abuse are leaked to the bishop or any of the leadership of the church. They are supposed to call a hotline, which is supposed to instruct them on the legal rights to keep your mouth shut and tamper with investigations. So that was a huge scandal not too long ago that made national news. Went worldwide. And so the question is not whether BYU will do it, it's whether or not the prophets of the church will do it and what their response will be. They can't keep silent forever. They have to come out with a statement and choose to either dismiss it as, you little whiny snowflakes, get over it, or make Brad Wilcox a sacrificial lamb so that the church can continue to be exempt from non-discriminatory laws. See, if you remember, not too long ago, I think it was last week, the church came out and demanded every single professor be Mormon with a temple recommend. You do not understand what that means, because Monday this week, the church came out and said, "Oh, we approve of Arizona's new bill that's being presented to the legislature with our help, in which it's a non-discriminatory bill. We approve of such non-discriminatory bills. I've done another video and it finished saving here. So I have 2 this morning, with a potential 3rd on its way eventually after this one. And the church said, it's the cooperation between religious freedom and non-discriminatory laws. What? Cooperation between religious freedom and non-discriminatory laws? And then you get into the bill and you realize, religions are exempt from being non-discriminatory. The church is a religion. BYU, run and owned and operated by a religion. They just had all their instructors, everybody who works there, be Mormon. And Sunday, Brad Wilcox is exposed yet again, because they are showing another video of him going over the 12 tribes of Israel, where he's again racist. I told you guys, the prophets instruct everybody to be racist. Came from Brigham Young. I found one of his talks yesterday. I did the video on that. But my day in the sun is gone until the next breaking news story of the church. Unless I'm shut down and can't communicate anymore with anybody. Can't call out for help when I'm attacked again. But, Brad Wilcox is Mormon at a Mormon university. What do you think the church has already been setting up for you? Brad Wilcox is exempt from discriminatory practices. He can be a bigot, a racist, a sexist, neglect the poor all he wants, because he's exempt as a Mormon. So all of these little sensitive snowflakes, you don't get it. You don't see what the church has done. They set this all up. They're purging you. Do you understand what it means to purge? Did you not watch that movie series? I haven't yet either, but I have it. It's the church's misinterpretation of the parable of the wheat and the tares, the wheat and the chaff, the sheep from the goats. That all has to do with the latter days. There will be a separation of the righteous from the wicked. The church are purposely being wicked to divide out the righteous from Mormonism, so that the church maintains the wicked. They're the great and abominable church. What do you think I've been doing all these years for you? And the video that I just ended up saving, again, goes over it with you. The video I did last night, again, goes over it with you, showing you how God judges the wicked, presidents of the false church. What does it take for you guys to get a clue? This church is a hate group. Just because the Southern Poverty Law Center doesn't label them as such, doesn't mean that they're not. They are. They're a terrorist organization. Just because our government refuses to label them as a terrorist group doesn't mean that they aren't. They are. They paid Russia to start the Battle of Magog. Because who's coming? Jesus! Yay! Ezekiel 38. Jesus! He's coming! Yay! They set this all up for you. 200 years of premeditated plotting and conspiring to set this all in motion. They murdered Joseph to do this. Because Joseph exposed them. And instead, you're focused on Jesus. Jesus is the distraction trap. And so, today the prophets meet for their weekly meeting at 10 a.m. at the church administration building because the temple is unavailable for occupancy at the moment. It's got the inverted pentagram there at Temple Square, and all Mormons, zoop. Who do you think that sign is a representation of? The Book of Mormon tells us. Don't you believe the Book of Mormon? Isn't the Book of Mormon true? It tells you all about the Great and Abominable Church in exact, precise, graphic detail. And whoop! It's another testament of Jesus! Because Benson said so! Mr. Joseph Smith is wrong. The Constitution in America will not be saved by Mormons. The government will fall. Jesus will take over. What do you think they're setting up? Hello? They want the Kingdom of Deseret back. All of this comes from the Constitution created by Brigham Young in 1849 to perpetuate slavery, to keep blacks as the other. And then his official doctrine was 1852. And then I think it was 62 or 63 that I did yesterday where he did the thing where I did the video, and I think it was 62 when he gave that talk. It was like 18th of March? Or 8th of March. 8th of March. And so, I feel for all you sensitive snowflakes. I do. I'm not being mean to you guys. I'm trying to get you to understand that the church is being mean to you. The church is hurting you. The church is seeking your harm, your death, and you don't see it. You focus your cause on Brad or others rather than the primary cause of all this, which are the prophets, the false Christs, the false prophets, prophesied for the latter days even. And you miss it. You don't want to see it. It's too horrifying for you to realize that you've been duped since birth. Is it Rosemary's Baby? And there's another one also. But, yeah, movies. Classics. To the Devil a Daughter. That's it. And so I just, guys, protesting isn't going to do anything. The church is exempt. I mean, why do you think they've set this up? You guys have been complaining about all their crimes. The rape cases where the rapist goes free and the victim of rape is excommunicated and removed from BYU. She's the guilty one. LGBTQ, IAPO+. Oh, yeah, conversion therapy. Just barely stopped last year. Being investigated by the FBI. And then the segregation of blacks that continues. They have to have their own union because the church won't give them equal freedom. United and equal. Instead, it has to be separate but equal. That's segregationalist thinking. And there it is at BYU. Covered in the press, ignored by the press as to what it is. The Genesis group downtown. Separate but equal. Oh, it's now a ward after 1978. They're equal. What's the problem? Well, the problem is, as I've been telling you, when I was the secretary for the Elders Quorum, as one of my dozen of callings at the ward here, when I first moved here, black member moves into the neighborhood, comes to church. I go up to him and say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Travis. I'm the secretary for the Elders Quorum. Are you Mormon or visiting?" And I get interrupted. Other Mormons from the ward come up to him and say, "Hey, welcome to the ward. Do you know about the Genesis group?" And they're clueless that they just performed a verbal hate speech comment. Threatening him to leave, to get out, that he doesn't belong here. Oh, but they said hello, welcome. Again, Mormons don't get it. It's indoctrinated in their souls. I first experienced it in junior high at what we called Auburn Jail. Junior high. They're in Corona, California. It was PE time, and the boys, we were allowed to do whatever we wanted for that particular thing, and the boys decided, well, let's do touch football. Touch. But of course, the boys being boys, oh, let's do real tackle football. Without pads or helmets or any of that stuff. Like rugby. The real football. And we weren't doing it. It was just a joke. And the ball gets hiked. I catch it because the quarterback gave it to me, threw it to me. I caught it, went running into the end zone for a touchdown. As I crossed the line, which really wasn't there, it wasn't marked, chalked, but nonetheless, I made a touchdown. Stan Lowry was able to touch me on my shoulder, but I was in the end zone. That touch on my shoulder resulted in my misstep of my right ankle, and I cracked one of the inner bones on the inner side. It wasn't broken, it was cracked, and so it hurt, and I was on the ground going, ah! And everybody immediately got the PE coach, who was also one of the coaches for football, I think, or baseball. And I was taken to the school nurse, and that there wasn't much they could do. They don't have X-ray machines or anything like that, and so my mom had to be called, And while I was waiting for my mom to come pick me up, to take me to the hospital, to put a cast on it, Sister Childs, still remember her name. She's a sister because she's Mormon, which is rare in Utah or Southern California. There wasn't as many of us gathered together like here in Utah, where you've got a church on every block and the whole neighborhood is Mormon. It isn't like that in Southern California. I had one Mormon who I had a crush on, who lived down the corner from me, but that was it that I knew. Others were scattered around, but our church, my parents made sure to move right there by the church. But Sister Childs came to me as she was an office secretary, and said, "We'll make sure that he's punished. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of him." I was like, "What? He didn't do anything. It was an accident. I slipped." She wouldn't listen to me. Nobody even bothered to hear my side of the story, because all the witnesses said that Stan was tackling me, and we were joking about tackling, and Stan did it. In case you hadn't noticed, Stan is black. I worked as an office aide at that same time period. That was one of my elective classes that I took, Easy A. And so when I came back to school with the cast, I was filing, as was my duties as an office aide, and all of the people who have troublemaker files in school, and they made sure that I saw Stan Lowry's getting filed right back in the file cabinet. It was massive. Stan was never given an opportunity to be who he is. Nobody would let him. It was crushing to me. The first experience of hate, and even by a Mormon, Sister Childs. I came home from school one day, passed by their home. Stan's father saw me, came out to me and apologized for his son. I tried to tell him that I couldn't get a word in, and he said, "Please tell your parents not to sue." I had no clue that for a black man to have a dominating white suburban new home was a rarity back in the 80s. They had to move. My parents didn't sue. They still had to move. Because Stan got expelled from school. If you don't understand why it's wrong to hate, whether it's racism, sexism, bigotry, or the neglecting of the poor, you're in for a rude awakening. You guys are not focused on the right cause.